Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Mavericks of Senior Living. We're very excited today. We have some special guests. As you can see, I'm Catherine Wells, the Chief Inspiration Maverick, and my co-podcaster and co-host, Francis Lagasse, is not here at the moment. He may or may not be able to join for this session, so he may be a surprise guest along the way. So stay with us. If any of you are struggling with dealing with dementia in yourself, in someone that you love, this is going to be a really impactful podcast today. So stay tuned right after a word from our sponsors. Well, that didn't work. I don't have the video. So there we go. We're playing it. We're rolling. Francis usually does the video and I don't have it on hand. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests. Today we have with us Jenny Desserich from Dignify Dementia and Dr. Chris Vaughan. And I will let each of them introduce themselves. Jenny, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Jenny Desserich, as you said. I am the executive director of Dignify Dementia, which is a small web-based nonprofit here in Denver, Colorado. And I am just looking to make a difference in people's lives who are struggling navigating the dementia journey.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So we're going to talk about your personal journey as well as all the work that you're doing today.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Vaughan.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name is Christina Vaughan, and I'm a neurologist. I specialize in movement disorders and in palliative medicine. And I'd be pleased to talk in a little while about palliative medicine if there's time. And I work at the University of Colorado and at the local VA hospital in the departments of neurology and medicine. And I see patients and families living with all sorts of neurologic conditions, including dementia and neurodegenerative disease. And with my team, we provide neuropalliative care to those patients and families.
Thank you. That is fantastic. And we certainly will touch on palliative care. It is very, very misunderstood. And we like to create clarity around that for our listeners. So thank you for bringing that up. So Jenny, you started Dignified Dementia. Tell us what it is and why did you start it?
Well, as of right now, it is a very small web-based nonprofit. And I started it specifically, I was inspired by my dad, who was diagnosed at the University of Colorado Health Science Center, Anshutz campus, with Lewy body dementia in October of 2018. And Dr. Vaughan is actually his doctor. Or actually, I should say our doctor, because palliative care treats the whole family. And what inspired me was that we get this devastating diagnosis of you have Lewy body dementia. And my dad's second or third question was, well, how do we help other people like me and other families like ours?
Jenny, wow.
And so we've always been a very community-minded family, very much into helping others. But I said, well, Dad, let's try and get a handle on helping you with what we've got in front of us right now. And then I promise you, I will find a way to help other people like you and help other families like ours once we get a little handle on this. And so that's kind of how
beautiful.
It started.
And what is it? What does Dignify Dementia do?
Well, what we do is we provide on our website, we provide a toolkit for people with dementia, living with dementia. And this toolkit is intended to help those navigating the dementia journey help them to have a little more independence, a little more positivity, and develop a sustainable routine, which can help with the enormity of navigating dementia itself. And so our toolkit is 5 pieces that I developed with, as you can see, the calendar is off, but I developed these using my background in public health and actually elementary education. Lots of colors, lots of pictures, illustrations. And so I don't just sell these, and they didn't just come about. I developed these for my dad because as we were patients at the palliative care center, one of the first things we heard was you need to start filling out a wellness journal. And I journal all the time, but I had never heard of a wellness journal. And so I just did like everybody else did, went on Amazon and bought 2 or 3 of them, and not one of them worked for my dad or made sense for my dad.
Interesting.
And he wasn't interested enough to keep up with it. So I just kind of kept going back to the drawing board, and I can say quite honestly, to this very day, he uses them every single day. The first 3 components, the calendar, the Eating Today guide, and the wellness journal itself. And the calendar helps the person kind of anchor to today in the present. And we start this with our morning routine. And we use just a little transparency sleeve and put it in there, and it allows him to circle which day of the week it is, what the date is, and then I have him write out the whole date. And part of what I'm trying to accomplish with this toolkit, in addition to helping develop a sustainable routine and give the people with dementia some autonomy, is to use a lot of the cognitive skills that will decline as someone advances in dementia.
Right. So exercising the things that we know are likely to go first.
Yes.
And continue to keep that muscle. Okay. And Francis was able to join us. He's behind the scenes. You can pop on, Francis, if you'd like. He was doing the production on the back end and showing your website, which is great because it gives us that tangible feel of this is something people can download. It's not expensive. It's absolutely approachable and affordable and usable, and creates action. Very important.
And so my dad, the thing that my dad says is, even when we offer him, because unfortunately right now he is declining, and he is just recently been put on home hospice. So he's preparing to go on the final piece of the journey, and we are all trying to follow his tremendously courageous lead. And he starts his journey. He starts his day almost every day still with a smile, with a joke. But
how inspiring. So inspiring. That's how we want to be.
Yeah. And with the toolkit, I'm just so glad that we have Dr. Vaughan on here too, because she can speak to how she has seen it affect my dad and how it has worked for him for the entire 6 years that she's been seeing him.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that, Dr. Vaughan. What is your experience with this, and what kind of results did you see?
Sure. It's been really meaningful to watch this tight-knit family kind of developed this together with Jenny spearheading the efforts. And I think, her dad and the whole family has a wonderful sense of humor, and that's been really important throughout this journey. And in the development of the toolkit, I think some of the most important pieces have been the routine of it and the sort of standardization. Maybe that's not the right word, but the fact that it's concrete. There are different activities that don't take inordinate amounts or too long amounts of time, because attention can easily drift or vary. And there's comfort in structure and routine, particularly in neurodegenerative disease or in various forms of dementia. And I think that's been an important element of this for Jenny's father, and as the toolkit itself offers. I think socialization is sort of built into this toolkit. It allows for and really necessitates interaction at different parts of it. And I think that's been a big important piece as well: socialization, structure, routine, as well as some degree of autonomy. There are some choice points along the way within the toolkit. And then lastly, let's not forget, Jenny's organization is Dignify Dementia. And I think that indeed this toolkit seeks to help provide dignity or maintain dignity in focusing on, reorienting somebody first thing, being able to anchor in what the date is and where we are now. And I think that these are all contributing to a sense of dignity and feeling centered or grounded in your reality as much as possible.
Dr. Vaughan, a quick question for some of our families. Is one of the best things they could try to do is that pattern or that routine if they're really kind of feeling out of whack or sorts when it comes to their loved one, even themselves?
Absolutely. Routine, people have a love-hate relationship with this word, I think. But at the end of the day, I think it offers structure and a comfort in knowing, what? It's 9 a.m. What do we do at 9 a.m.? This is bath time. This is breakfast time. It doesn't leave room to question necessarily. It's like, oh, we've got it written down. This is what we do at this time. And so there's comfort in the structure, and it allows you to get the things done that are necessary too, because they're built into the schedule. So absolutely can't underscore enough the importance of seeking a routine and sticking to it and posting it so that it's easily accessible in big letters. Nobody has to squint or struggle to read it if reading is possible. And 100% agree that routine is really important.
Awesome. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2010. And I think one of the things that I didn't know as a family member, when she was referred to a neurologist, I kind of went, why? A neurologist? It took me a minute to connect that, of course, this is neurological. And that is the specialty that we need to see. If somebody who's listening now or in the future has someone in their life and they're curious about whether they are showing early symptoms, what would be your recommendation, Dr. Vaughan, to seek out a neurologist or go to their doctor?
Yeah, I think the most straightforward thing to do first is to take that to the primary care provider, whether it's a physician or a nurse practitioner, to start there, because it can otherwise seem often very overwhelming. How do we find a neurologist? What kind of neurologist? There are all sorts of subspecialties now. So I would strongly recommend starting with the primary care provider and just very clearly state the facts. This is what we're noticing. We're noticing that, for example, this person's getting lost, or they can't handle the checkbook anymore, or the finances, or they're really struggling to find words or recall names. Whatever the facts are, start with those, take them to the primary care, and let that person help you then figure out next steps. It might be blood work, very simple, basic blood work. It might be a brain scan. It might be a neuropsychological test, which is a 3-hour really deep dive into all aspects of memory and thinking. But ultimately, they should be the one making the referral to the neurologist, just to help make that connection.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So given that the two of you have walked this journey with Jenny's dad, what would you want to share with our audience about the journey in particular?
Well, quite honestly, I think the palliative care clinic really eased a lot of our journey, because I just happened on the palliative care clinic because I'm a chronic migraine sufferer, and in addition to doing all the stuff for Dignify Dementia and caring for my dad, I have quite a bit that goes into my own healthcare, and that's actually how I ended up seeing Dr. Vaughan's predecessor, Benzie Kluger, and then I continue to see Dr. Vaughan myself for
And
movement
you, Jenny,
disorder.
you didn't know about palliative care at that
I
time?
didn't. I did
Interesting.
not know. And I had just been talking to the doctor about it during my own visits about things that my dad was experiencing, and I knew enough to know that they weren't part of normal aging. He started experiencing a lot of falls, losing words, losing his balance, slowing down completely. And it took me a good year and a half to convince my dad, my mother, and my brother that we needed to be seen by a neurologist. And so we went, as Dr. Vaughan said, we went to the primary care first. They referred us to a neurologist. That neurologist, I think, was very well-meaning, but he goes, let me see you walk, to my dad, and had my dad walk up and down the hallway. And then he goes, yeah, I think it's Lewy body dementia. Sorry. And that was kind of it. And
Oh, Jenny.
not a
Wow.
pamphlet, not a, nothing. And so we were just kind of stuck. And I'm a trained researcher. And so in talking to the doctors in neurology at UCHealth, the one doctor, he said, I'd be happy to give you a second opinion or try and confirm the diagnosis on your dad. And that's how we ended up becoming palliative care patients. And I just sing the praises because not only is my dad the patient, we as a family are the patients. And
Yeah. Let's
we've
let's dive into that. Let's dive right into that, because that is something, Francis and I are all about action and clarity. So let's clarify. And maybe Dr. Vaughan, would you mind sharing what is palliative care? When do people engage with it? What are the benefits of it?
Sure. So palliative care, first of all, the word palliative, a lot of people don't realize what it means. It comes from a word which means to cloak. And I like this word so much because it's a visual, it's a powerful visual. The idea of a cloak, as I see it, is like another layer of support. And that's what palliative care really intends to provide. It's a team-based approach, ideally, focused on people that are living with life-limiting or serious illness at any stage of the illness. So from the time of diagnosis or any time after that. A lot of people think of palliative care in relationship to cancer, and that's because it was born out of oncology initially, but it has grown and is very appropriate for all sorts of conditions, particularly like in my area, neurology, particularly chronic, progressive, incurable conditions. And so we seek to provide support to families focusing on emotional support, caregiver support, existential support. We have on our team spiritual care counselor, also some.
oh
Oops, we lost Dr. Vaughan. I'm sure she'll come back. Jenny, while we're waiting for her to come back, just share your experience with the palliative.
well, quite honestly, there are those difficult conversations that you end up having to have during the dementia journey, specifically like for my dad, for our family. A big one was, you're not a safe driver anymore. It is time to
Yes.
give up the keys. And
Yes.
there was
It's a big one.
Yeah, there was friction and tension there. And the palliative care clinic, not only the doctors, but the social worker and the chaplain helped us develop a plan and also helped us present it in a way to my dad where it wasn't just giving up his freedom.
Yeah. It's not, Dad, we're taking
was-
your keys away. You
Right.
can't drive anymore, right? And
Right.
to go back to your name, Dignify Dementia, keep his dignity in this process
Exactly.
when you had to do that. And Dr. Vaughan, welcome back. Where we left you at, it was emotional support, existential, and I'm curious about that one. So continue
Sorry.
on.
Apologize for my interruption. Existential support, sometimes it's not uncommon for people when they get a new diagnosis or somewhere along the way of a tough diagnosis to ask, why me? For example, what did I do wrong? And there are just a whole host of questions that people ask, sort of trying to make sense of, trying to process a diagnosis. And it doesn't, of course, just affect the patient, the one with the diagnosis, as we're hearing in Jenny's family as well. It's often the family itself, or it's usually the family or whoever's close to them, chosen family or otherwise, that's all experiencing or living through this. And so we seek to provide that existential support, emotional support to whoever is supporting the family or the patient. We also pay attention to symptoms, whether it's, there's a whole host of symptoms and different neurologic diseases. So usually the primary neurologist is providing a lot of symptom support, but we also lend a hand to refractory or symptoms that are not well treated or well enough treated. And it's all that cloak idea, providing another layer of support, focusing on not just the physical, emotional, the existential, and the practical side of living with a chronic condition. And the social worker role, also a team member, often serves the practical side, thinking about what's the day-to-day living like and how can we help with that, whether it's transportation, whether it's respite care, those disease-specific support groups and resources, that sort of thing.
That's fantastic. Francis, you probably knew that already, that palliative came from the word cloak. I love that analogy.
Yeah, I think it's powerful. A lot of our residents are apprehensive that there's a confusion a lot of times, I'm sure you guys, between hospice and palliative. And so it gets drawn I don't want to say negative connotation, but there is a lot of education needed, the difference between palliative and hospice. And I think that can be a limiting factor for people using palliative. They assume it's one and the same as hospice. So I love, Dr. Vaughan, the way you phrase it. I think that's a fantastic terminology to show it's not necessarily the end, right? And I think that's when people hear palliative, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. It's like, well, let's get you more services now because it can support everybody in the process. And I love the cloak analogy. I didn't know that, honestly, Doctor. That was a fantastic way to phrase it. So appreciate that.
Yeah, just to add one quick thing to your point, Francis, if we could distill it down, what is palliative care? It's to help people live as well as possible, as long as possible, in the face of a serious illness. And hospice comes up and gets confused with that. But I prefer to really just distill it down and define it that way.
That's perfect.
That's fantastic. I think too, what I love, about our conversation here is it's not looking at just the diagnoses. And I think that is far too often a problem when someone gets a form of dementia, right? Because we know there's depending on who you talk to, hundreds of types of dementia right now, right? Depending on which person you talk to. And I feel like they get so stuck in that, this person has, frontal temporal or Lewy body or Alzheimer's or mixed dementia or vascular, right? And I think the approach that you two have especially is it's the person. The dementia diagnosis sure matters, but what can we do for that person? What is the patterns, the routines, the rhythms, the connections we can make that not only values their life, but brings that love and comfort and support to the family, to the friends. So very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And
well, thank you both. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry. The one thing that the palliative care clinic did for us that I don't think we would have gotten without their special support was they have a neuropsychological volunteer there who was a caregiver for her husband and her parents. And my mom was not a natural caregiver, and she had a lot of guilt, a lot of anger, a lot of negative, as we've said, emotions. And she actually had a couple of talk times with just my mom, and they made quite the difference in how my mom approached things and how she still approaches things. And just to hammer that point home, getting that support is so important. And that's what ultimately Dignify Dementia does. Is I want every single caregiver and every single person out there suffering with dementia or other neurodegenerative conditions to know they're not alone and to have a place to go.
That's beautiful. And it's very obvious, Jenny, in what you're doing. It's very inspiring that you've created Dignify Dementia. We will put all of the links in the show notes so people can get to your website. Dr. Vaughan, what you're doing is very inspiring as well. We know that this is a terrible disease. The hundreds of variants of this, and that it doesn't seem to be getting better anytime in the near future. So to have the support systems available is just crucial, and then educating people on things like this podcast about what they are. I wish I had known about palliative care. I actually didn't know, and it would have made a big difference during the time that both my mom and dad were suffering with dementia. So Francis, you want to close it out?
No, I think at the end of the day, connect with people and find the resources that really support your mission for your loved one and for your family. I think a dementia diagnosis is scary, right? It's unnerving. It's every emotion in the book, from anger to frustration, but it's not the end, right? It's a change in the ending. And I think we have to remember it's okay to be different. So let's find a way we can rally around that person, our person, and get creative with how life can be, and understand that, we got this, and it might not look at how we wanted it to, and that's okay, but it's solvable as a collective group. And find your support, find your people and your tribe and your circle to rally around you, because at the end of the day, it's going to take a village, a people, a group to make it feel good. So we're going to keep this work going. We're going to definitely keep spreading the message, because it's time we change the stigma around living with dementia, because we are living with it. People can live with it. They do live with it. And it's the help of Dr. Vaughan and Jenny with Dignify Dementia that it's going to start to change this narrative. So appreciate both of your work. Can't thank you for taking time on a Friday afternoon to talk with Catherine and I. And for our viewers, find your people, find the support that you need, and make that micro step, that small step, and it can be pretty powerful. So until next time, be kind, go pay it forward, and have a fantastic weekend.